So I will move on to my presentation. And first few slides, I would like to give an overview of the statistics of organic farming worldwide as well as in India, and move on to some of the apprehensions that often the opponents of organic farming have, and how we have experimental evidences based on the research in tropical tuber crops that organic farming is safe and sustainable. So, with respect to organic farming, I am not going to give you all the definition of organic farming as per IFORM or any international organization. This is just a definition that I have made myself based on my experience in this field. Of course, you all may agree that it is an alternative. It is an alternative to the existing farming practices. And here we are targeting on the sustainable production. What for? For actually the health of the soil, then environmental protection as well as human health. And how we are going to achieve it? That is mainly by avoiding the use of synthetic chemicals and with maximum use of on-farm generated resources. So only if we rely on on-farm generated resources, organic farming will be sustainable or profitable. Now, with respect to the world area on organic agriculture, you can see it is Oceania, which is ranking first, followed by Europe, then Latin America, then Asia, North America, and Africa. So again, if you ask me how much area is under organic farming worldwide, it is how much? 76.4 million hectares. And the top three countries are Australia, Argentina, and France. And with respect to the producers, the total organic producers worldwide is 3.7 million producers. And with respect to India, it is an encouraging position because we are the first, we are the top ranking with respect to organic producer, that is 1.6 million producers are there in India, followed by Uganda and Ethiopia. An organic market, we have a growing organic market, and the global organic food market in billion euros is 125 roughly billion euros, and the top ranking countries are USA, Germany, and France. Now moving on to India, what we can do actually, we cannot convert the entire area into organic. Converting the entire area or en masse into organic is not a feasible option. So that is why in the beginning I told it is an alternative. But through government policies, we are trying to reduce the use of chemical fertilizers or chemical inputs in different ways. First of all, we can actually demarcate the areas where the fertilizer use is nil or nominal, as I have shown in the India map. Then another way is to demarcate the crops that are responding to organic farming and that is having a good export potential or good potential for earning foreign income, that is exchequer, like high value crops like tea, coffee, cashew, spices. And at the other end, we can focus on rain-fed agriculture with some of the subsistence crops, marginal crops like pulses, oil seeds, and in that category, tropical tuber crops also fit in. So we can say that the total area under organic certification in India, still it is only, you see, it is less than 5 million hectares, that is 4.34 million hectares, and that too the cultivable area is only 2.66, that is less than 3 million hectares, followed by the forest and wild area collections. So the other figures are also given with respect to the certified organic production, which I have mentioned earlier, and those things are there. So now moving on to tropical agriculture in the case of, especially in the case of organic production of tropical tuber crops. Just we have a dozen, more than a dozen of tropical tuber crops. They are the food security crop, nutritional security crop, and climate ready crops. and you will be familiar with the cassava, is it not? You have heard of cassava? Tapioca, it is actually an important crop, an industrial crop in these regions, especially in Tamil Nadu, Salem area and all. We have lot of factories promoting the starch and sago production. So they are the third most important food crop of man after cereals and legumes. And you can see the high biological efficiency with respect to the yield and the starch content. And they are climate ready because they can withstand adverse soil and weather conditions. They can come up very well under the poor and marginal soil conditions, less water requiring crops and less chemical input demanding crops. They can come up well in even in drought tolerant conditions. Shade tolerant, they are shade tolerant, they can withstand some crops like sweet potato, taro, those crops they can withstand waterlogging and salinity. So that is why we say they are all climate ready crops or climate smart crops. And not only that, they are an important component of any cropping system or farming system, and they will help to enhance or double the farmer's income because growing these crops are profitable and they will also result in high BC ratio, benefit cost ratio, more than 2.5 to 3. So in all these ways, not only that they have high production potential, they are also economically important with respect to increasing the profit of the farmers as well as providing employment opportunities. You can see they are long duration crops and the employment generation is to the extent of 150 to 280 man days per hectare. Then they are also good contributors for the food and nutrition. You can see the energy. They can provide 6% of the world's dietary energy. They are good source of dietary fiber, beta carotene, antioxidants, flavonoid, mucilage and minerals. They are rich in vitamins and minerals. So they are known as a nutraceutical rich food. And not only that, they can be compared with some of the cereals with respect to the energy production, with respect to the carbohydrate production and those things. And added to that, not only in the food front, they are also important in the industrial front for the production of starch, sago, alcohol, liquid glucose, vitamin C, poultry feed, animal feed, and so on. And to a poor man or to a common man, the most important aspect is the energy in kilocalories that is produced per kilogram of the fresh tuber. And you can see the range, especially in the case of cassava, yam, these crops, it is more than 1,200 to 1,300 kilocalories per kilogram of the fresh tuber. So owing to these attributes, and not only that, they can become an important component of any agri-food system. And not only there is immense scope for organic production in these crops, there is great scope for growing these crops, especially as future crops in the context of climate change. Now, there is scope for organic farming in tropical tuber crops, as I said earlier, because even otherwise, they are grown by smaller marginal farmers, and so naturally, they are grown with less chemical inputs and insecticides. And they are also adapted to the low input condition, low input agriculture, and some of the crops like elephant foot yam. You know what is elephant foot yam? Big one. Elephant foot yam, then taro, tania. They respond very well to organic manures, and there is a growing preference for these ethnic vegetables, especially in the Indians who are residing outside India, abroad, all over the world, especially in the Gulf countries, in the Middle East, in the European countries. Always there is a preference for ethnic foods like tropical tuber crops, especially because they do respond to organic manures and there is less of contamination, there is less of toxins in them. So always there is a focus for organic production in these crops. And last added point is that in these crops they have fewer pest and disease problems as compared to the cereals and vegetables. So only issue in the case of the tropical tuber crops is just you have to make a choice of the easily available and cheaper sources, bioresources for the safe and sustainable production of these crops. So one by one, I am coming to the point which is often debatable with respect to organic or conventional agriculture. Whenever we speak about organic farming, the first question that often the opponents of organic farming raise is that whether as I said in the beginning, always when we start organic farming or when we start talking about organic farming, lot of opposition will be there, especially with respect to the opponents. The first question often that they arise is that whether we can sustain our production with organic farming, whether we can produce enough food to supply all. Then the next one is whether there is really the food that we produce is superior in quality. Then whether we can meet the nutrient requirements solely by organic means, that is another important point that is to be addressed. Not only the yield is important, is it not? So we have to justify with respect to the other benefits, like whether there is soil benefit, environmental benefit, all those things. So always it is not the yield that is important, the quality, the soil is important, the environment is important. And finally, the profit with respect to our poor and marginal farmers, the profit is important. So whether it is organic farming is profitable or economically feasible. And finally, the most important challenge or the issue in organic agriculture is to manage the pests and diseases by organic measures. So these questions, they are always there from time to time, especially when we start a new research program. So these are the questions that I faced when I started my research program in organic farming 20 years before. Actually, I'm giving you just a glimpse of my 2 decades of research just to instill some confidence and interest in you all with respect to this sector or of agriculture, which is very important nowadays. So here, I am trying to provide answers to these queries based upon my research activity over the last 20 years. And you can see when I started my work, even the superior authorities who used to come and visit the experimental field or who used to come there from the council, like my ADG or DDG, they used to ask me how you will sustain Suja with this crop, because it is a poor man's crop. It is not having, it is a, I will say it is not a very high value crop. But now, of course, there are prospects. So, but still, I sustained, or I did consistent research in the same field. You can see through 2 institute projects, 6 external funded projects. So it is possible even to get funding for organic farming from other agencies. Then 2 PhD projects. So I am showing all these things not to highlight my achievement, just to motivate the younger generation that you have to persistently or consistently achieve your target by sticking on to a single field or whatever that you are interested, whether it is integrated organic farming, whether it is natural farming or whether it is organic farming. So just 20 years of research with the 14 on-station experiments, and all these are on-farm validated through in farmers field by way of on-farm trials or demonstrations in 102 different trials. So first is the first answer to the query, can organic farming produce enough tubers? Of course, all these are long-term experiments conducted for 5 years in each group of crop, and you can see there is 10 to 20% higher yield in almost all the tuber crops, barring a couple of tropical tuber crops like taro, where there was a reduction in yield to the extent of 5%, though the reduction was not significantly different. It was only numerically different. As well as in the case of arrowroot, that is taro and arrowroot, there was a slight decrement in yield in organic farming when compared to the conventional farming. Main issue in the case of taro is that the taro leaf blight, TLB, which is caused by Phytophthora colocaceae, could not be controlled solely by organic means. So when I started, now we have, it is more advanced, we have biological measures too. And the next important aspect is that whether organic farming is stable as the existing conventional or the existing POP. So we have worked out the yield stability index and we found out that it was equally stable as the conventional or the existing package of practices. Now, what about the varieties? Whether the allied varieties are more responsive or the local varieties are more responsive. So we also were into that, and you can see in the initial years when we actually did the experiments on organic farming versus conventional farming with respect to the allied and the local varieties of elephant foot yam, taro, the three different species of diascoria. Actually, we have three different types of yam. I'm not going into those details because that may be not of much interest to you all, like white yam, greater yam, lesser yam. All these performed similarly under both the systems, which means that there was no significant difference between the allied and the local varieties. And what you have to do is you have to promote organic agriculture in a variety which is having high market demand or which is acceptable to the consumers. Now, in the case of the network program on organic farming, which is there, we are all centers or partners in that, and there we actually found out the varietal response with respect to cassava, 12 varieties over 6 years, and we could find that cassava mosaic disease resistant variety Sri Raksha that could give stable yields even after 6 years under organic mode. That is actually a variety which is having lot of attributes like completely resistant to cassava mosaic, then drought tolerant. Now it is responsive to organic agriculture. It is having shelf life, longer shelf life, and good cooking quality as well. So it has lot of virtues, lot of attributes. So it is fitting well under organic agriculture as well. Not only the yield, but also the profit was higher under organic management in the case of Sri Raksha. Now, what about the quality? With respect to the quality of the organic tubers also, there was enhancement in dry matter, then starch, crude protein, then anti-nutritional principles like oxalate. Oxalate is the biochemical constituent that causes itching in the case of elephant foot yam, taro, tannia, that is the aroid group. You can itch when we start preparing itself, there will be itching, and when we eat also in certain times, in certain varieties, there will be itching. Then one such anti-nutritional principle in cassava is the, which is that bitter, which causes bitterness. That is, what is that called? Any idea? HCN, what is HCN? Cyanogenic glucoside. So those attributes were found to be little lower under organic farming. But total sugar and total phenols, those were higher in the conventional system. Now, with respect to the mineral composition, there was enhancement in the potassium, calcium, and the magnesium contents. So we can say in total, there is, of course, there is improvement in the nutritional quality of the tubers as well. Now coming to the soil benefit, the soil health, which is the most important aspect whenever we talk about this alternative farming strategy without the use of chemical inputs. The main increase, ours Kerala soil is acidic soil, so there is improvement in the pH towards neutrality, and that itself will decide the nutrient supplying capacity of the soil or the soil fertility. Then soil organic matter is increasing, the water holding capacity is also increasing, and not only that, the major, secondary and the micronutrient status, as the case may be, that differs with respect to the different tuber crops, they were also showing an increase. So we worked out the soil quality index also in these crops, and those were found to be higher in the case of the organic treatment or the organic using biofertilizers without the treatment without the use of chemical inputs or the chemical fertilizers. They showed a higher soil quality index in the case of elephant foot yam and cassava, and mostly those were driven by water holding capacity, soil pH and available zinc in the case of elephant foot yam, and in the case of cassava it is again the soil pH is one deciding factor, then dehydrogenase enzyme activity, exchangeable calcium. Now coming to the economic feasibility also, because of the 10 to 20% higher yield increase in these groups of crops, the profit also was higher with respect to the organic farming to the extent of 20 to 40%. Now, with respect to the energy efficiency, because we are totally avoiding the use of chemical fertilizers, there is a reduction in the energy input to the extent of 43%, and because of the higher yield also, the energy output is increasing. With the result, the net energy will be higher, the energy productivity and the energy use efficiency were also higher in the case of the energy efficiency in cassava. Actually, this was done by my PhD student, that is organic production of cassava was her PhD thesis, and this is from her thesis. Now, how sensitive is organic management to climate change? That was also little bit we have experimented or analyzed with respect to there are two models actually for cassava growth simulation model, SIMCAS. That was actually validated based on the data generated from field experiment on organic farming of cassava, and we wanted to find out which aspect of the climate was influencing the tuber yield more, and we found that the temperature was the most decisive factor in determining tuber yield in all the varieties that we tested. That is, Relani Hraswa is an important cassava variety that is released by Kerala Agricultural University, and in all these beta T was showing a higher value. That is, it was influencing the tuber yield more. And with respect to solar radiation, that was significantly less effect on tuber yield. And with respect to the production systems which actually advocated the use of chemical inputs like the conventional or the integrated, they were showing higher beta T values. So in that way, we can conclude or we can infer conversely that the organic management, where there is the no use of chemical inputs, have actually a little more scope for growing under climatic aberrations. That is our conclusion with respect to the climatic influence on organic farming. Now, another model was also there with respect to elephant foot yam, that is AFISIM. So that also we actually predicted how the future climate change will influence our management strategies, whether it is going to influence with respect to the future climate change, if we grow under conventional or if we grow under organic farming, how the tuber yield or the corn yield is going to be affected. So here you can see again the yield of elephant foot yam. It was predicted under various management options. In the scenario of climate change, that is also a model. We have a computer scientist there, Dr. Santosh Mitra. Actually, he has developed this model, elephant foot yam simulation model, FEC, and to find out the sustainable management options. So here you can see the conservation practices. You don't have to emphasize much on that, but you can see the other practices because that was also one of the treatment in her PhD program. Then organic package, that proved to be sustainable options under climate change because the yield was found to increase with unit increase in temperature and solar radiation even up to 4 units. And also when the temperature was decreasing, the corn yield was found to increase. So there is actually a scope for growing the crop like elephant foot yam under conditions when the temperature is decreasing in future. So these were all the conclusions that we could draw with respect to the influence of climate change on organic production of these crops. So there is future climate suitability with respect to organic farming in these crops. That is what I mean to say. Now, with respect to the on-farm trials also, those were validated and we could find that in farmers' field also, actually the yield increase under organic farming was more, 30 to 35% yield increase, and that was based on about more than 100 on-farm trials that we did in the different, not only in different parts of Kerala, but also in the other agroclimatic zones through our AACRP on tuber crops. So, coming to the what are the package, with respect to the package, the essential component of organic tuber production, you can see the first and foremost is the seed material is very important with respect to any crop, and this is more important in the case of tuber crop, and so it should be an organically produced seed material. So it will little more be tolerant to the aberrations or the changes, the pest and diseases, infection and those things. Then farmyard manure is the basic thing that should be incubated with the bioinoculants like a trichoderma or pseudomonas. And seed treatment, again in the cow dung, neem cake, bioinoculant slurry like a trichoderma, that is also important. The neem cake should be an important component of the organic farming strategy, because that is important to control, not only for it is important, but also for controlling some of the nematodes, some of the disease infections and so. Then use of biofertilizers, then green manuring, then use of ash, and those are the important components of the organic production of tropical tuber crops. And now slowly, after an initial period of experimentation, we have tried to reduce the dosage of the solid organic manures by resorting to the liquid organic manures, and we could find that we can reduce to the extent of 25 to 50% by relying on the liquid organic manures. You may be knowing like Bijamrit, Jivamrit, then Gana Jivamrit, so many are there. Panchagavya, then vermi wash. Vermi wash is very important not only for nutrient management but also for disease management, is it not? So vermi wash, then cow urine. Cow urine is also having lot of properties. So these are the liquid organic manures that can be combined or integrated with the organic packages. In any crop this can be used. So there is scope for reducing the use of solid or other organic resources or bioresources to the extent of 25 to 50%. Now coming to first, initially I was speaking more on individual crops, and now we have shifted to a system approach, because in a country like India we always say that we need to have more systems, cropping systems or agri-food system. So one such feasible crop combination is the cassava groundnut system, and there also we found that 100% organic or 75% organic. What is 75% organic? The remaining 25% organic we are inputting through the use of liquid organic manures like vermi wash or panchagavya as the case may be. So those were found to be productive as well as profitable. You can see the pictures. And yet another important system was the elephant footium and vegetable system, and there also you can see the organic package that can be used for growing intercrop of vegetables like a cucumber or amaranthus in elephant footium. Actually these are short duration intercrops that can be easily grown in vegetable, and there also you can have the organic packages using farmyard manure, poultry manure, vermicompost, neem cake, groundnut cake and PGPR. So here we can see there is improvement in the soil properties as well as the soil microbial population and the enzyme activity. So lot of beneficial effect, especially in a system, when we have it in a system mode. Then now we move on to the integrated organic farming system model that we have developed recently. We have there with a dairy unit integrating with the animal component. We have 12 animals there, 9 cows and 3 calves, and these are some of the promising cropping systems in the IOFS model like taro and maize, then cassava including intercrop of cowpea or amaranthus, then banana intercropping with elephant footium. Then of course after one crop, then again we have the sequential crop of vegetables followed by oil seeds, fruit crops on the border or on the, you can see on the hedges. We are growing pineapple, then hybrid Napier grass, agadi, moringa, lemongrass, and of course we have our vermicompost units as well. And we are producing our own vermicompost that is named Sri Amruta, because this is Central Tuber Crops Research Institute is located at Srikaryam in Thiruvananthapuram. So always for all of our varieties, we have a prefix Sri. So the vermicompost is also named Sri Amritam. Actually, we started the production of vermicompost only last year, and that is also coming up in a good way. So you can see the tuber equivalent yield. It is a good tuber equivalent yield from 75 cents to the extent of 20 tons, and the net returns is also appreciable. This is the average of 3 years. And this is the actually our IOFS model, and you can see the different array of crops that we have grown, and the produce also, and the milk production is there, cow dung is there, and cow urine is there, and we are also producing our manures, like as I said earlier, the Bijamrit, Jeevamrit and Ghana Jeevamrit, and that is strictly, this is grown based on organic methods. We are not using any chemical inputs in our IOFS. Now, one more aspect is there, not only the research aspect or the on-station experiments, we are also doing the geo-referenced, the geo-tagged characterization of the organic growers as a part of the, Dr. Krishnan sir will be knowing about it, NPOF project, and so far we have actually surveyed, geo-tagged using a geo-referenced survey of more than 120 farmers, and one such case study has, fortunately, it is finding a place in the compendium of country case studies, which was actually released in the COP26 of the United Nations Climate Change Congress at Glasgow, United Kingdom, and it actually, that is a safe food project, or the Nalla Bhakshana Prasthanam, that is known in Malayalam in that way, in the northern district of Kerala, that is Malappuram. There you can say an organic cluster is there, and that was done under the aegis of our network program on organic farming from CTCRI, and you can see it is a collective of young farmers in Ponani and Edappal, Malappuram district, Kerala, and that is actually with the objective of providing healthy food to the society that was started, and mainly they are advocating the organic farming principles without the use of chemical inputs. They are growing so many crops, rice, vegetables in a system mode, and that itself, traditional varieties of rice, traditional breeds of cattle, those things are there, and it is actually a very good case study, and which can be actually mimicked by any of the other organic clusters. So you can see some of the pictures here. They have an eco shop, selling outlet. A lot of value added products are also produced there. Then organic production of lot of vegetables, amaranthus, upland rice variety. Then even organic cassava is forming a part of their systems. Then you can see the organic banana, then terrace cultivation of organic vegetables, then another important, economically important crop, high quality starch arrowroot, that is also grown there. Then cow, an indigenous breed of cow, mature cow, then integrated farming system, poultry manuring, then small machines or power tiller, that is also given as a group venture to the farmers of this project or this group. Now, just one or two points with respect to natural farming, and I will just close my presentation. There is difference between organic farming and natural farming. Of course, you may agree with me. Do you all know what is the difference between organic farming and natural farming? Anyone? Use all organic products or organic resources or biological resources in natural farming? No, it is actually a chemical-free method. It is a traditional farming method, which is actually an based on the principles of agroecology. We are actually integrating, we are integrating the crop, trees, livestock, but we are giving more importance to the ecosystem or the functional biodiversity, that is the microbial diversity, and those things we are taking into account. And the four pillars of natural farming, you see, we have to strictly use all these four essential components of natural farming, like BGJ. What is BGJ? Bijamrit, Ghana Jeevamrit and Jeevamrit, that should be used. Then mulching throughout the year, and Vapasa. What is Vapasa? irrigation in alternate rows in the afternoon. So these are actually strictly envisaged in natural farming, but in organic farming it is not like that. Is it not? We should not use chemical inputs. That is all. And not only that, we can follow almost all the cultural practices like weeding, interculturing, plowing and those things. But in natural farming, it is not like that. We should not do except mulching. Just sowing and planting and then only mulching. So we are actually excluding all the purchased inputs, organic as well as the chemical. And one more important point is that strictly speaking, it should be from Deshi breed of the cows. Though it is actually very difficult to follow and we will not be able to sustain also our yield if we go strictly by these means. So we have now brought in certain refinements that I will come to you, and we are little more fine tuning the natural farming based upon our conditions and based upon our situations, so that whatever the government is insisting, the policy issues of the government can be addressed at the same time without relying much on the chemical input, so that it becomes productive at the same time sustainable for in the long term. So the difference is very important. You see, in organic and natural farming, the commonality is that both are non-chemical systems of farming, and it is based on diversity, rotation, multiple cropping. There is biomass recycling. Then lot of resource regeneration is there. Of course, in both it is there. But in organic farming, we have little more scope for using the off-farm organic and biological inputs. That is why it is becoming more expensive. Do you remember the definition that I told in the beginning? It should be based on farm generated resources. If it is on the basis of on farm generated resources, can you name one on farm generated resource? Pardon? Cow dung when the farmer has livestock, of course. Then compost, the vermicompost, those things that you can produce in the farm. Then green manure, it is yet another thing in the available space. You should try to grow the green manure. So those are some important on-farm generated bioresources. Then in organic farming, we can go for the conventional cultural practices like tilling, plowing, planting, then mixing of manures, weed control. All these things can be done. There is no restriction on the cultural practices then. But we should not use GMOs. What is GMO? Genetically modified organisms. Then micronutrient corrections can be made, because in the national program for organic production, have you seen the national standards for organic production? NSOP, that book is there. There is a Bible where they say we have to use certain products. Only then ultimately you will get the certificate as organic, or the organic logo can be obtained only if you use those permitted organic which are permitted for organic farming. So, but whenever there's a micronutrient deficiency like a zinc or boron, you can go in for micronutrient correction in the case of organic farming. And organic farming is actually, it is fetching up worldwide, because you see the organic global market, I told you it is growing at the rate of 20%. That is what the statistics says, and it is 125 billion euros. But in natural farming, you see, this is very important point you should take in mind when you go for interviews, when you go for higher studies, especially in India, this question will be there. So you see, in natural farming, no external inputs are used. We are only relying on the local process. We are making use, harnessing the biodiversity. So naturally, it will be profitable. It will have low cost, because we are using only those three things. Is it not? Then lot of scientific evidences are required. We have to prove it scientifically, especially when you are growing for an array of crops, because the nutrient uptake of the crop will differ, the soil nutrient status will differ. In spite of all these things, for all the crops, irrespective of the crop, we are saying only we should use these three things. So all those things are not correct, strictly speaking, and we have to focus our scientific attention on these aspects, and we have to come evidences. Only then we can say confidently that natural farming is good or natural farming is sustainable. But we are in the early stages, and through the NPOF centers, we are actually coming out with good results. Then there is no ploughing, no tillage and weeding, and it should be from the Deshi cow. There is biomass recycling through the mulching. Then organic matter decomposition is mainly by the earthworms. That is what Subhash Palekar is saying or recommending. Then vermicompost, compost, these are not allowed. And what about the market? The markets are only in the evolving state. But in organic farming, it is not like that. When I said about the what organic market, which are the three top ranking countries? USA, Germany, and France. So you see the organic market, how it is developing. So I'm not going again more into this 4 wheels of natural farming that should be known. Then what are the important aspects of natural farming also it is there. Why we are using Bijamrit, Jivamrit, Gana Jivamrit, all these are soil microbial enhancers. Then why we are going for permanent soil cover 365 days, that has got lot of beneficial effects. We are learning this right from our first year BSc Agriculture class. So that is scientifically proven and there is no harm in advocating that. Then next is Vapasa. Because of the lot of mulch or what you are applying, the soil physical condition will be improved. Is it not? And the organic matter, soil organic matter will be improved. So there is no need of frequent irrigation. So we can have restricted irrigation, that is soil, because of the soil aeration, alternate furrow irrigation is sufficient. So that is also proved otherwise. Then prophylactic pest and disease management is very difficult in natural farming because we have to have so many preparations like Agniastra, Dimastra, Brahmastra, those things, protocols are there. I'm not going into the detail, and the scientific validation is also not complete. We need to have scientific evidences when we are going in for all these very difficult preparations. Finally, we have refined all the, sir, I will finish within 10-15 minutes. So we have to go for some pre-monsoon dry sowing. We can have other non-chemical means like trap crops, mechanical crop traps, biocontrol agents, neem seed kernel extract, because these have already been scientifically proven in different because we are using in other integrated management strategies also. But some refinement also we are trying to bring into these aspects. Now I am not going into the pest management strategies are there. This is just our result. Just one or two sentences about that. Actually, we are also into the natural farming with respect to cassava intercropped with vegetable cowpea followed by green gram. In that, in the first year, you can say that natural farming was good. It was on par with the integrated crop management and ANPOF. ANPOF means organic package, but subsequently in the second year, it is not feasible. Integrated crop management has proved promising. So that is why I told in the beginning, we need to have long-term experimental evidences. Only after that we can come into a conclusion. Actually, our ICR DG, Dr. Himanshu Patak, also when he visited, he was very disappointed because he had noticed that in one center, or which had taken later on in one center or in one of the NPOF centers, it is giving good result. But it is not like that in the subsequent year, it is actually not performing well. So I am going to skip all this, okay, because we are we have time constraint. So this is the second year result. You can see I have shown in light orange shaded. It is the integrated crop management practices, which is more productive with respect to the yield of the individual crop as well as the system productivity. But when we come to the profit, especially in the first year, you can see the natural farming is showing an upper hand because the cost of inputs, cost of production is comparatively lower in the case of the natural farming treatment, and not only that, the BC ratio is also higher in the natural farming treatment. So now we have little bit refined, and you can see we are fitting in so many aspects, and this has also been approved, and we are actually asked to do the rest of the experiments in this mode by integrating some of the other aspects like biological measures, use of biocontrol agents, mechanical traps, physical traps, so many other things. So just these are not at all to highlight my achievements, just to inspire you all that with my humble piece of work, it was possible to publish in good journals also, like Agronomy for Sustainable Development, International Journal of Plant Production. You can see organic elephant foot yam, then organic yam, then organic taro in Scientia Horticulturae, then Indian Journal of Agricultural Sciences, then even in advances in agronomy on mineral nutrition of cassava, along with Dr. Baiji, you see one chapter is on organic cassava. Then even in agronomy journal, there is an article on wheat cloth, though it was the first good treatment, but it was closely followed by the biological treatment, that is biomulching. So that was published in Agronomy Journal. Then we have Indian Journal of Horticulture, then Scientia Horticulturae, then the other minor tuber crops, even the minor tuber crops like Chinese potato, it was published in the International Journal of Vegetable Science, arrowroot, organic arrowroot in biological agriculture, horticulture. So dear students, I am not here to highlight my achievement, but my role, I am actually into the fag end of my career. I have only 3 years more. So my role is also to bring more of younger generation into this area of research. So these are all the research papers solely on organic agriculture. You see about 9 in international journal and about 14 in good impact national journals like Indian Journal of Agronomy or Indian Journal of Agricultural Sciences. So that is all. Now we have also developed a conceptual framework for organic farming in tropical tuber crops, where we integrate the agronomic or the cultural practices along with the organic inputs, along with the external inputs, and finally we have to come into a package of organic farming for not only for enhanced productivity and profitability, but also with the final objective of conserving our environment and also for natural resource conservation. So future thrust, just a few of them. That is, we need long-term systematic research on the comparative values or advantages of organic farming over conventional farming. Then we have to have more assessment of the quality and the agronomic efficiency of locally available and potential organic resource. You need to harness the potential of the bioresources. You have to characterize the organic inputs based on their nitrogen content, their lignin content, their phenol content, their CN ratio. You have to characterize and make use it, and you have to have long-term experimentation as well. Now, one important lacuna is the development and screening of varieties with adaptation to organic farming. That should be done on a priority basis. And finally, the environmental impact of organic farming, especially on the water and the air quality, need to be assessed. Then long-term studies are required. Now, the most important agenda or the future thrust should be on weed management. Actually, under climate change, we are all facing problems to control weeds effectively, and especially if it is under organic means, our efforts, it is very difficult to control weeds under non-chemical means. So that part has to be investigated. Now, one important point where there is scope is that you can actually harness or make use of the native beneficial microorganisms. Is it not? When you continuously have organic farming in the same field, you get lot of beneficial microflora, not only for nutrients supplying benefits, but also for disease suppressing roles. So that can be identified and that can be promoted as microbial fertilizer. So that is another important aspect which can be done. Then lot of things are, like as I told earlier, you have to delineate the areas, you have to find out the prospective areas and the crops. Then it should be given lot of awareness, capacity building is important. Then when you go for the geo-referenced survey, you will get lot of IT case. Is it not? Indigenous technical know-how. You have to prove them scientifically and you can have a good documentation of the ITK as well. So these are some of the abbreviations, very important ones that we often come across when we talk about organic farming. And if you see the net, you can see the Organic World Congress. It is actually held periodically, I think once in 3 years or so. So that also you can send your papers and you can go and present. It is mostly held abroad in Asian countries and European countries. Now finally, how to win research proposals, that is also important. You can see the funding agencies that I have given, RKVY, then NHM or SHM, I think now the name is changed to Mission for Development of Horticulture, then PKVY, then BPKP is also there, BST, ICR Network Project, CDB, all these are some of the funding agencies. First, you have to prepare critically a concept note for 4 or 5 pages. And also I have given all the important points that should be covered in that, and the title should be very catchy and short. Keywords are very important. The project summary also should be very attractive. Try to make short sentences. The sentences should be very short. And how will you win it? You have to cash upon some of the unexplored areas like soil quality, environmental quality. We often talk about ESS. What is ESS? Ecosystem services. Actually, that also you need to work out. You should have in lot of international journals. Now we have the idea, or we can get how to calculate the ecosystem services. Then produce quality, societal impact. So all these are there. Now finally, on-farm validation should be there in any of the project proposal that you are submitting, because funding agencies like DST will always look into the societal impact. So that aspect should be there. So that is all. Now way forward is also there, which is very important. You should have a comprehensive statistical data collection on all aspects of organic farming. So that should be there, like an agricultural census. Then there should be an integrated strategy for addressing the issues in organic agriculture, especially during the initial period of conversion. There will be yield decline. So that aspect you should look into. And what about the availability of the organic manures? That will also result in poor yield, or there will be yield decline. And sometimes there will be no synchrony in the demand and the availability. Then the slow release of the nutrients, mismatch between crop demand and soil supply, then difficulty in handling the bulky organic manures, especially transportation, and the low analysis. Then about the certification, inadequate certification, that is also very cumbersome, and the marketing infrastructure. So all these are important points to be looked upon. Then reliable input. The input is very important. That should be good in quality. It should be reliable. It should be from a government agency. Only then that will result in the development of good or potential organic clusters. Then we need to demarcate certain areas like a potential organic agriculture zones, like our special economic zone, and there we should also promote some tourism, agro-eco tourism. So that will also be beneficial for, especially for the nature loving ones, and that is another way of promoting organic agriculture. Then try to establish the integrated organic farming system in niche areas. That will also be a research cum demonstration unit, the model organic farm in every district or wherever it is possible in potential states. Then wherever it is possible, everywhere it will not be possible to go into 100% organic. So wherever there is possibility to turn into towards organic. So what is towards organic? Integrated organic. There also we are trying to reduce the dose of chemical input to 25% or 50%. So in the initial stages, try to reduce the use of chemical input by switching into integrated approach, and slowly you can move into completely organic. Then farmer producer organizations, they should also be involved in the production, processing and marketing of organic produces. Then about the minimum premium price that is also important. A minimum support price should be given to the farmers. And always we should promote by giving some incentives to the farmers, especially during the initial period, then awards and recognitions and capacity building. So that is all. Thank you all very much for the patient attention. And thank you, dear Krishnan sir, for giving me this opportunity, and Manivannan sir too. And this is my number. For anything, you can contact me. Whatever is known to me, I will pass it on to you at that time itself. Otherwise, I will find out and inform you. Hope it was useful and it was not boring at least.